KLOS New and Approved. One of my favorite people and favorite guitarists is Dean DeLeo of Stone Temple Pilots, who has an incredible new project called Trip the Witch. And it's always a great time when I catch up with Dean. We've been friends for so long. Dean, it's so good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, brother Matt.
You know, I've got to tell you that, it's amazing how our history goes back, to when Core came out. And when you came up, you were at that point, you were still working before you guys actually started touring. I think the CD was just pressed, and it was beautiful because you came up to the radio station in New Jersey and you brought the long box of Core, and you were like, "Remember?"
Yes, I do remember, because Matt, we should let everybody know what a fan I was and what a saving grace you were to me, broadcasting out of that little place in Eatontown, New Jersey.
Thank you, Dean.
HTG. I drove that van. I sold the stuff I delivered, coffee products and stuff like that, and everything was legal.
Yeah.
And gosh, I spent probably 30 hours a week in that van, and you were my saving grace, Matt. The stuff you played was so great for FM radio, man, and it was wonderful. So we started out as me being a fan.
Which is amazing. And, what was so cool is when you came up, and what's great is I was music director and program director of the radio station at the time. So you came up and said, "Hey, Matt, I got this new band. We're called Stone Temple Pilots, and I just got copies of my CD. Would you play it?" And I went, "Hell yeah, come on in." Remember, I said, "Come on in." We came into the radio station, which was great, out of your delivery truck. And we opened that up, man, and we put on Wicked Garden and Sex Type Thing. And I think we played Plush or Cracker Man. We played a bunch of songs, but it was just so cool. And we had a great time. And then everything started to happen. The next time you came back to see me at the station, Plush was everywhere. I mean, it was one of the biggest songs in the country. And what I loved is you came right back to see me afterwards. You were like, you were in town. You got, you're like, "Matt, I'm coming to the station." It was so cool. So, and we've had that friendship ever since, which is amazing,
Ever since. And I was just calculating that, man. That's been like 30 years, man.
Yeah, it is.
30 years.
It's incredible. But, it's such a great thing, that, again, it always made me so happy and so proud because I love the band so much. And you as a guitarist, besides being a person who became my great friend, but you as a guitarist just so inspired so many young people to pick up a guitar and play the way that your heroes did for you and the rest of the guys in the band too. I mean, obviously, Eric, your brother Robert, and Scott, still people will always consider him one of the greatest frontmen in rock history. So it was an incredible time, and I'm so glad that STP is still rocking with Jeff Goot. It's incredible, It's great.
Me too, man. I'm very, very grateful that we met Jeff. Very grateful for that.
Yeah, it's been good. Those shows have been really killer. So I got to tell you, Dean, I want to tell some more funny stories, but I want to talk about Trip the Witch because this is so cool. First of all, I love that you worked with Jon Anderson because, look, we love those albums, like the Yes album, Fragile, Close to the Edge. They're all great records, some of the best prog records of all time, right? And
Scripture.
Yeah, So, but tell me about your friend, the guy that you became a fan of, who is the other guitarist. Talk to me about him because it's really cool the way you guys met and discovered each other. Let's hear about that.
Well, that is my dear friend, the one and only Tom Bukovac.
Yeah.
Who resides in Nashville, and he plays on a lot of records. My, oh my. He's a very sought after guitar player for that session stuff down there in Nashville. And at the top of this pandemic, he started a little station on YouTube called Homeschooling. And basically, he was, like we all were, pretty bored, and he wanted to give basically free guitar lessons on YouTube. And he starts each one out with like this little ditty he would play, and he would talk about what he's playing and talk about the gear he's using, and really give you this in-depth lesson from one of the greatest players, in my humble opinion, one of the greatest. So my dear friend Ryan Williams, who mixed Trip the Witch and engineered all my stuff, sent me a video of Tom playing. This is how I got hip to him. And I see this video, and right away, if you guys, I invite you to go check out his channel, Homeschool, and right away you'll see what I'm saying. I mean, you'll just fall in love with him. And not only him as a person, but his playing. And man, I swear I was watching him and I felt like I knew him forever. And Ryan reached out to him, sent him an email, says, Dean from STP is a huge fan of the show. He's like, oh, tell Dean. I said, hey, and here's my number. I called him immediately.
Yeah.
I called him immediately, and man, we just hit it off. And in no time at all, we just said, let's make a record. And, one thing led to another, and this dang pandemic, and as tragic and sad as most of it was, we were able to kind of carve this thing out, man, over a few months.
I think it's really cool because it's just, the record's just got a real soothing quality to it too, but it's atmospherics. It's really cool.
Thank you, Matt.
And like Dressed to Kill Myself, what a great title for that song too. I love that instrumental. I mean, there's a lot of, it's a very instrumental record, but full of soundscapes. It's very cool. And it almost feels to me like it's a thing that kind of gets you through when you're going through those times during the pandemic when things were so chaotic, and it's some music that kind of soothes you through that. It's just really, it's a beautiful record.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you, Matt.
It's really cool. Hey, so talk to me about getting Jon Anderson to play on Saturn We Miss You. I mean, I love that.
Well, Saturn was a song that Tom came up with. Excuse me. And I instantly thought that Jon would be amazing on that track. Jon would just be so amazing. I mean, honestly, anything with Jon Anderson would be pretty great. But back to what you said, man, those records were just scripture for us. That was my musical upbringing, those Yes records. And I simply reached out to Jon. I got his email and I wrote him a lovely letter, basically telling him what he means to Tom and I. And, we would love for him to grace this song. And Tom and I kind of talked about it before, if Jon were to jump in, we say, wow, wouldn't it be great if he came in here? And I normally wouldn't have done this, but I attached the title as if it was a working title. And I said to Jon, do what with it you will. Do with it what you will. And I attached that title, Saturn We Miss You. And like I said, Tom and I spoke about where it would be cool for Jon to come in, and we talked about these things. And my goodness, man, I think if you're ever going to have a cosmic experience with somebody, it should probably be Jon Anderson.
Yeah.
And he came in right where Tom and I spoke of. He completely tapped into that title. As you hear the song, I didn't hear from him, and about 3 days went by, and I got the song back completed. He sang on it, and I'll tell you, Matt, it was so emotional, man. It really, really brought a tear to my eye. And I sent it to Tom, and it was very emotional for us. And Jon gave me his number. He goes, hey, man, let me know what you think. And I called him immediately, and I did my darndest not to gush. And I just was like, told him, what his music has done for us, both Tom and I, and what it means to us. And, the gratitude that we had. And
that's great.
Fortune that we had to be graced by the great Jon Anderson was immeasurable.
Yeah, it's funny. You and I were talking about that, and we've talked about it before. Just when you and I, because we've had so many conversations about music, and that run of albums, the Yes album, Fragile, Close to the Edge, it was just this incredible thing. And to think that they really did most of those two albums in 1 year, the Yes album and Fragile, is just mind blowing, right?
It's mind blowing, man.
And the playing of, I know that Robert is a big fan of Chris Squires. I mean, so are you. We all are, right? I mean, the bass
course.
playing, Steve Howe's guitar, everything about those records still sounds incredibly fresh when you put them on, right? I mean,
my gosh.
and John's
Incredibly
voice is
fresh.
just, sales. So it's one of those things, But
Yeah, those records still make me feel as I did when we were kids, man.
Yeah.
Like that emotional connection and that melodic sense and the playing. Yeah, it's an emotional entanglement for me. Yeah, it really is. It's deep. It runs deep.
And I love that because I think music should have that emotional impact on you. That's the thing that's
Absolutely.
so great,
And the same goes for Tom. Tom was, that was one of our biggest conversations from the game. We talked for hours about Yes and Genesis and, all that great prog from the 70s that we were fed.
Yeah, well, we love that prog. Those records were as important to us as the heavy rock records we loved, as Zeppelin, Sabbath, and everything else. It was Aerosmith, and we loved all of it. I mean, that was the cool thing. We weren't, when you and I were growing up, it was like we listened to everything. You know what I mean? It was good. It was like it was either good or it wasn't. So, but we were always looking for,
man.
Right, an emotional connection, and it's so great. So that's exciting. Dean, I got to have you tell the story because one of my favorite memories and nights is your birthday. You and me and your brother Robert and Judd Apatow were all having dinner at the Ivy in Santa Monica for your birthday, right? The four of us, and you and I decided, you're like, Matt, you go back to your hotel. And you go, I go, yeah, all my stuff's there, and you go, don't worry about it, man. You can come stay at my place. I got sweats. Just stay over. We'll listen to music. We'll watch some movies. We'll do some things. So I went back to your house. We hung out in Malibu. First, we were on the patio and just talking about life and us both coming from Jersey. And then we decided to go out into the garage. And I'd like you to take the story over from there because the story's amazing and it blows people's minds. So tell me about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's almost like a dream, wasn't it? What happened that night?
Yeah.
It was almost like a dream. So we had a groovy little spot in the garage. It was kind of like a fort, we were able to play music. We were able to play music and hang out and do what we wanted to do. And remember that I had that piece of furniture that fit in the corner. It was shaped weird, so it fit in the corner. It was full of CDs, right? And we were listening to T-Rex.
Yeah.
We were listening to T-Rex and going deep into T-Rex and talking about Marc Bolan, that is. And we kind of went over by the little stereo. There was a little boom box there. And boy, it sure did sound good. And we were sitting on the floor, right?
And that's when you picked up your guitar and started playing the slider. And I started slinging it along with you. But even before, you were going to get a tape or CD out of that thing, that piece of furniture. And out of nowhere, it just fell over on you. Like there was nobody there, but it just, remember how crazy that was?
It slowly came over on us, man. Like slowly, like somebody was behind it, pushing it.
Yeah, that was the most unbelievable thing. And then that was only the first part. So you and I we're getting through like the second verse of the Slider by T-Rex. And all of a sudden, the garage door starts to shake. That was unbelievable. And you and I just stop and we look. The guitar, there's no one there. And the garage door starts shaking. And then it stops.
Oh, I forgot about that. You just jarred my memory. I remember that now.
And you remember what happened next? Then we hear what sounds like somebody fumbling around in your car. And all of a sudden there's no one there. It feels like somebody's, and then the trunk pops open of your car. It sounded like somebody reached in and pressed the button. There was no one there. That was such an incredible thing. You and I looked at each other and went, yeah, maybe we'll go inside and watch a movie. It was unbelievable. Was it the ghost of Marc Bolan?
Oh, it was the ghost of Marc Bolan.
It's like people, when things, you tell people that, people always take those things with a grain of salt. This really happened. I mean, it absolutely happened, and I will never forget it. When the thing fell over, and then the garage door in the car, like in that succession, I was like, whoa, what's going on?
That was right. You know what, man? I forgot about the garage door and stuff. But now that you bring it up, I completely remember that. And my goodness, man. Yeah. And that piece of furniture that went over, it was like somebody was just slowly pushing it over. Like it was like slow motion, just came down on both of us. We're like holding it up, and all the CDs came all over the floor, and then the garage door started shaking.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, that was an incredible time. And then at that point, we were like, well, maybe we'll go inside. It was just one of those incredible moments. I mean, it's so great, Dean. We were talking about the things we loved as kids. Guitar players always want to know for you, who were your go-to guitarists that you loved growing up, and who were the people that really made you want to pick up a guitar? And I know there were many because of your diverse taste in music.
Yeah, there were so many, but we were kind of on the forefront there. So Steve Howe definitely was a huge part of my musical upbringing. Of course, Mr. Page from a little band called Led Zeppelin. He surely molded me in a good way, I hope. And gosh, now that list could go on and on. Those early Jeff Beck records, Wired and Blow by Blow, that we were listening to in the 70s. Those records were just phenomenal, and still are just, some of the greatest guitar records, and then it went even beyond like just rock stuff. Jeff kind of was getting to that. And what was really cool about Steve Howe was how he would, just in one passage, he would present 4 different styles of guitar, from bebopping on a jazz box to nylon classical picking to like a Spanish
flamenco thing, yeah,
kind of flat string or steel string stuff he was doing. And I mean, he would lay out these different facets of guitar in one song. So that was a lot to take in. And then, getting into the jazz world, our Jersey's very own Tal Farlow, was a great one to listen to. And man, that list could just go on and on and on.
I'm sure. And you guys will remember with STP that incredible acoustic version you guys did of Dancing Days, and it was always so great. I've always loved when you guys would break down into the kind of unplugged part of the show and do Pretty Penny, a song that you wrote, and so many other great things. But I got to ask you this, because as you becoming an important guitarist yourself, tell me about, were there 1 or 2 instances where you met some of your heroes, and what were those experiences like, and where were they? Didn't you and Paige ever meet and talk? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Robert and I, let's see, this is going back a few years. We were in Japan, and Robert and I were kind of the house band for this beautiful evening where Jimmy was presenting Jeff. That's Mr. Page and Mr. Beck.
Wow.
Jimmy was presenting Jeff the Lifetime Achievement Award. It was in Japan. And Robert and I were kind of the house band, so we learned a bunch of Jeff stuff when he came out and did his stuff. So Robert and I had breakfast with Jimmy one morning, and it was really lovely, man. And Robert had met this gal who kind of started remaking the old Ace straps.
Yeah.
The old knit ones that you see Jimmy wearing and Eric wearing and Lennon wearing and Hendrix and Beck. Well, all the ones that Jimmy was wearing when he's playing that telly in the early days, Robert had those remade them. Yeah. And boy, was that really nice, because Jimmy is very, very sharp, man. He has a memory like no other. And, Robert said, "Hey, I got this gift for you, man." And Jimmy opened it up, and he saw the straps that he used as a young man. Yeah. And it was just great to see his expression and how much he enjoyed seeing those once again, Yeah,
and seeing the one, seeing them, it must have been a surprise for him, right? I mean, I can imagine the look on his face was like, wow, yeah. I can't believe I've seen these in a long time, right?
Yeah, so it was cool. And so yeah, we got to play a lot of cool songs with Jeff that night, and that was a really, really lovely evening, especially after the show. Jeff and Jimmy and actually Joe Perry and Robert and I sat at one of this table and just chatted. And Jeff just had some great stories when he was, kind of palling around with Mr. Hendrix back in the day. And gosh, it was just lovely. I didn't say very much, but I surely listened.
I know you're talking about, when you can hear those stories from us, because you're just blown away by that time that when we were kids listening to their music, right? I'm sure you probably had similar experiences with people like Joe Perry, who we also loved, growing up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. When we went on the road with those guys a lot, we did a lot of shows with them. And you know who else, man, I really got to spend some time with, which was really wonderful, because I really, really am a huge fan of his records and how he popularized Jimmy Webb songs, was the great Glenn Campbell. Extraordinary guitar player, just an extraordinary talent, man. Glenn was just one of those guys who was just completely and utterly plugged in,
Yeah.
Singing, playing, his feel, his just that perfect pitch kind of thing, He was extraordinary. And we were making Shangri-La-Di-Da, and Glenn stopped by with his son Cal, who is a very, very dear friend. And
we're mutual friends, right? Yeah.
Love you, Cal. And Glenn stopped by, and we did a very impromptu version of Wichita Lineman that you can see on YouTube. And Glenn's playing my Dan Electro Longhorn 6-string bass, the baritone, and I'm playing acoustic. And we did like a really groovy little version of it, and it was very touching, very, very touching. And I remember showing up to the studio the next day, and Brendan was always early, and I'd be the first one to arrive, and we both kind of get to the studio, which was a house up in Latigo Canyon in Malibu. And Brendan and I looked at each other, and we were like just emotionally drained from the depth of doing this song with Glenn, one of the greatest songs ever written, Wichita Lineman. And we got to play that with the great Glenn Campbell. And so I got to spend a lot of time with Glenn.
I gotta say this, Dean, it's amazing because I've become very good friends with Cal because we lived in the same building in Hollywood. And so when I go to Nashville, I stay with Cal and with Glenn's widow. I stay with everybody down there at their place. And I love Cal. Like and Kayla, we became, just great friends through all that stuff. And we've talked about you a lot, of course, you know what I mean? Because I know you're really good friends with, but I love Cal. He's, and we spent a lot of time together. And the night of the 50th anniversary of the release of the 7-inch of Wichita Lineman, he had been performing with Harry Nilsson's son, doing the point at that theater called something Typewriter. I forgot the name of it. It's in town. I feel like an idiot by not remembering it. But it was Dynasty Typewriter, it's called. They were doing that performance of the point. But the greatest thing in the world is we decided after we had dinner tonight, we're going to go to this place that lets you play vinyl at this bar called Hollywood and Vinyl. No, Sunset and Vinyl. It's called Sunset and Vinyl, and it's on Vine. And it's like there's no sign. It's on the top of a pizzeria, and it's like this cool bar. And I brought my 7-inch of Wichita Lineman, one of the greatest songs ever recorded. And Cal and I played it like 3 times at midnight, and we were just singing it. We were having a blast. I mean, it's one of the greatest songs ever recorded. It really is in history. I mean, Glenn was just such an amazing talent. And like you said, when you were talking about, Joe and everything, or Tom, you know what I mean? When you're talking about like playing on sessions, right? And you were, and Tom playing on like over like 900 records, who's in Trip to Witch with you. That reminds me of Glenn Campbell because he played with the Wrecking Crew and he played on all those records of the Mamas and the Papas, the Beach Boys, all that incredible stuff, But I love, that is a moment I also remember is you and I and Robert in your car, I think it was, in your SUV or whatever we were driving, going up to PCH, and I think one of you guys put on Galveston, and I went, oh, my God, you guys like Glenn Campbell? Dude, I love Glenn Campbell. And we were like, and we got in this conversation, and it was definitely before Shangri-La-Di-Da. This was probably around the time of Tiny Music, maybe even. You know what I mean? And we were like, So that's when I discovered you guys loved Glenn Campbell like I did. I thought it was very cool, you know?
Well, look, that was the stuff our parents were playing when we were kids, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
Those Andy Williams records, the Glenn Campbell records, you
Yeah.
know.
So you
Dean
couldn't help but have
Martin
that
records.
sink into your DNA, right? I mean, it was part of the thing, you know?
Oh yeah, that was part of our musical upbringing for sure, man.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Glenn was electric, man. That cat was electric. He was really plugged in, man.
He was incredible. Dean, I
Yeah.
got to talk to you about, you know, I mean, it's been so great seeing the re-releases of the records, of the albums that have been coming out, and there's more to come. But I mean, when you guys re-released Core and Purple and all the stuff, was Robert saved everything, didn't he? Like he was really held on. He was the archivist, right?
Yeah, he held on to a lot of stuff. He kind of kept a lot of stuff. We all did, but not as much as Robert. You know, it's interesting because we were never really one of those bands to go in and cut like 30 or 40 songs and then pick the best 10.
Yeah.
We just weren't that band. And Brendan surely wasn't that type of producer. You know, at the time, Brendan was so busy. You know, we were I think we were cutting the Purple album, and we were at Southern Tracks in Atlanta, and I'm I'm cutting the guitar track to Still Remains, and Pete Droge is moving his gear in because he had a session starting the next day with Brendan.
Yeah. I mean, and Brendan at that point was doing like everything, like Rage, Pearl Jam, you guys. It was before he started doing all the Springsteen stuff. But it was like, yeah. I mean, but Brendan working with you, that was one of the things that was really interesting when you first brought Core to me, and we're in the radio station, and I go to you, hey, is there something I can say about the record? Is there some association? And you go, well, I'll tell you what. Our producer, this new guy, Brendan O'Brien, was the engineer on Blood Sugar Sex Magic. And I was like, that's what you said. I'll never forget that day. And so I said that, and since then, you know, of course, I've been there for so many of the great STP shows. I remember being with you guys in Atlanta when Brendan came up and played Interstate with you guys, and I've just seen so many amazing shows, you know, and I want to thank you for that, Dean. I want to thank you for, giving me so much great music that I've loved, that I still love to this day and still holds up in every way, and also being a great friend. I mean, you know, you can't trade that for anything, you know what I mean? And I appreciate it, you know?
Well, you know I love you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And so we talked about all those reissues. That's so great that you know, like you're right. You were saying how you guys kind of knew which songs you were going to do, figured out what they were, and that's the way you made your record. It wasn't like some other people where like they do 30 ideas. But it was cool that you had alternate takes and demo versions on, and there were some live performances that people did not have access to before that sounded really great, that captured that absolute time. It's exciting, you know, those releases.
There was some cool stuff we could kind of dig out, but now looking back, I kind of, you know, wish we had maybe cut a few more things. You know, there was one really, really nice little ditty. I think it was on the Tiny Music re-release, was this beautiful little thing Eric wrote. We just called it Kretz's Acoustic, but we were able to dig that out and kind of release that. So that was a real nice little track that was never heard before. And what was so cool about that track is Eric played everything. You know, he played all the guitars, he played bass, I think it was like kind of hand drums in it, but it was like this real Western kind of Laredo kind of vibe. And I loved it, man. I loved that track. So it was really nice hearing that after not hearing it for so long, and just getting right back to the place as to why I loved it so much.
Yeah, you know? That must have been really great to rediscover that. You know, that's the thing that's amazing about Eric. Your drummer, Eric Kretz, is like, Eric's just such a talented guy. And everybody in Stone Temple Pilots wrote. That was the thing that was cool. Everybody was a writer. Even though I know you were teaching Scott really how to play guitar so he could write some chords. I know that was you, like, really kind of guiding him. But, you know, Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart, that was Eric wrote that music for that, right? Which is just Eric so wrote cool. That one. You know, so everybody in the band wrote, which was an incredible thing. I thought it was just always great to see who wrote what, but it was just everybody in the band had that talent, and that's rare, you know, that when everybody has that talent to create.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, Dean, you once things, hopefully this new variant isn't going to derail more touring. But do you think you guys are going to pick up on the road again? Because people were so excited about you and Bush going out and everything, and then of course that all went down.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to try. We're going to do our darndest for the third time.
Yeah.
For the third time, we're going to try to do this thing over in Australia. And it's going to be the one and only, the great Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
Bush, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, and us. And we're going to try to do this in Australia, I think in March.
Yeah.
And we are currently now looking at what we're going to do here in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait. I'm sure you guys will come back, and we'll be excited to see you. Of course, we always are. You know, the shows are great. All the songs hold up. The new stuff you've been working on with Jeff is awesome. So, listen, Dean, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. It's great to have you.
Great to be here, man.
And, you know, I'm glad we reminded each other of that incredible ghost story, the ghost of Marc Bolan. That is just one of the, because, I mean, people, it's one of those things that unless you went through that, you wouldn't necessarily believe it. You know, we'd be looking at people.
And thank God you were there, or I was there with you, because no, it was almost like a dream. Like, all that really happened.
Yeah. It was amazing. It's just one of those things that I will never forget. Without a question.
It's one of those things we'll both take to our grave, my friend.
Without a question. Dean, thank you so much, man. Thank you for the new music with Trip the Witch. It's great. It's great to have you. And I'll be speaking to you soon. All right? Thanks so much.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, you got it. Thanks so much, Dean. It's great. Dean DeLeo, everybody. So great, man. Great guitarist. Great friend of mine. And I love when I can do that, is have a great friend on the air with me, and we just shoot the breeze, or whatever word you want to use. Maybe it's not breeze, but I'll make it clean for today. But Dean is the best, and it's so good. Again, however you consume music, make sure you check out Trip the Witch. It's his great new side project. And if you haven't checked out some of those STP reissues, they're really great and very extensive. And I suggest you get them like me, because I'm a absolute music geek. There's no question about it. I'm a music fan, but I'm a music freak. So I wanted to have all that stuff. I wanted to go through it all and go through those live recordings, demos. I mean, it was like a treasure trove. It's so good. Anyway, thanks so much for watching KLOS New and Approved and listening to us. I'm Matt Pinfield. I'll be back with you soon.